These are your Photosynthesis Chapter 8 notes. Here's a fun song I'd like you to listen to.
If you want to know how a plant grows, it takes water, air and sunlight and makes cellulose. Every plant can do this fundamental process, and we can call this photosynthesis. Unlike me and you, plants need CO2, and they make oxygen that stops us turning blue. Every plant can do this fundamental process, and we can call this photosynthesis. It's a miracle how all the chlorophyll catches sunlight in the leaves of the plants and the trees. A plant of any size can do it if it tries, but we're not green, so we can't photosynthesize. Every plant can do this fundamental process, and we can call this photosynthesis. It's a miracle how all the chlorophyll catches sunlight in the leaves of the plants and the trees. Every plant can do this fundamental process, and we can call this photosynthesis. Every
Plant can do this fundamental process. We can call this photosynthesis. Section 1. How organisms obtain energy. Energy, by definition, is the ability to do work. This isn't talking about your homework workload, but rather how your body uses fuel, meaning the food that you eat, to make energy for all of the demands we put on our bodies daily. The ultimate source of energy for all living things is the sun. The sun's energy can be captured to make organic compounds like carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, which we discussed previously. Organisms consume these organic compounds to make energy for themselves. There are two different types of organisms and how they use the sun's energy. There is the autotroph and the heterotroph. The autotroph are organisms that use the sun's energy to make food. We will primarily discuss photoautotrophs. However, there are chemoautotrophs that use inorganic substances to make their energy. So what are your favorite autotrophs? Here are some of my favorite. I love daisies. They're one of my favorite flowers. I also like Christmas trees, but we really call them evergreens or pine trees. I also absolutely love watermelon. And the bottom picture is a picture of my wedding bouquet. Opposite are heterotrophs. They must consume other organisms to get their food. There are herbivores, omnivores, carnivores, and detrivores. An herbivore is the deer, since it can only eat plants. An omnivore is the pig, because it can eat plants and other organisms. The carnivore is the lion, because it can only eat other organisms, some kind of meat. And finally, the worm is a detrivore because it breaks down dead organic matter. Metabolism. We hear this word a lot when talking about exercising and dieting. Metabolism refers to the sum of all chemical reactions of an organism. It helps to build molecules needed for energy, as well as aids in breaking down molecules to store energy. Someone can have a high metabolism, meaning they do more breaking down than storing of food, or someone can have a low metabolism, meaning they do more storing of food. Many things play into the type of metabolism one can have, like heredity, age, sex, amount of exercise, and diet, to name a few. Metabolism can be broken down into two main paths: catabolic pathways and anabolic pathways. Catabolic pathways are when energy is released. Large molecules are broken down, and our example is cellular respiration. When the body breaks down the food I eat, it breaks it into usable energy. Meaning, last night I had spaghetti and meatballs. All through last night and most of today, my body began to break down those carbohydrates, which then gave me the energy that I need for all of today's activities. The other path is an anabolic pathway. It is the opposite. It helps to build large molecules and uses the energy from catabolic paths. Photosynthesis is our example. Photosynthesis makes or builds glucose for the plant by using the energy created during cellular respiration. So what is photosynthesis? Well, we already know it's an anabolic pathway which builds large molecules, or carbohydrates. By definition, it is when light energy from the sun is converted to chemical energy for the plant cells to use. The reactants and products. The reactants, if you remember, that's the stuff or the ingredients that are needed in order for photosynthesis to occur. These include carbon dioxide, water, and light energy. Products are what are made as a result of the photosynthesis process. This is glucose, or sugars, and oxygen. As you can see by the diagram, there are 3 arrows going in to that sunflower. The sunlight, the carbon dioxide, and the water. All those are going in. Those are representing the reactants. However, our products, there should be 2 that are going out. You do see the 1, which will be oxygen. However, glucose actually stays in the plant. That is what we would eat, or also what the plants use when it goes through cellular respiration. So what is cellular respiration? It is a catabolic pathway, and it is when organic molecules are being broken down to release energy for the cell to use. Organic molecules such as carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. The reactants here are glucose and oxygen, and the products are carbon dioxide, water, and chemical energy, which we'll call ATP. As you can see, it is the flip or opposite of photosynthesis. And here, if you look at the picture, there are 2 arrows going inward, glucose and oxygen, meaning our reactants, and 3 going out, water, carbon dioxide, and our chemical energy, or ATP. Lastly is our adenosine triphosphate, or aka ATP. This provides energy to all living organisms. Now we got to remember that it is a type of nucleic acid, meaning it cannot be consumed by the body, but must be created or would be there like our DNA and RNA. ATP is what's created. It contains 3 phosphates, that's why it's called tri, meaning 3 phosphate. When one of those phosphate is broken off, it gives a release of energy, and that release of energy is what then is used by the body. You can see here by the equation ATP yields ADP plus P plus energy. ADP stands for adenosine di, meaning 2 phosphate. The essential questions. Differentiate between an autotroph and a heterotroph using 3 facts for each. Differentiate between catabolic and anabolic pathways. Explain how ATP works in a cell. Vocabulary words: energy, metabolism, photosynthesis, cellular respiration, and ATP. Oh, come on.
This fundamental process.
So don't forget about our fundamental process that we call photosynthesis.
It's a miracle how all the chlorophyll catches sunlight in the leaves of the plants and the trees. A plant of any size can do it if it tries.
Don't forget to look for Section 2 and Section 3 for your photosynthesis notes to be complete. Do this fundamental process, and we can call this Photosynthesis